right. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for joining my show. I have a very, very special guest today. He is my very dear friend. His name is Ron LaPlace, and he has been doing amazing things in the world for a very, very long time. He's also a very, what do I want to say? For me, he is a little bit of a spiritual teacher. When I first met Ron, he really entered my heart immediately. There is something so sacred about who Ron is in the world. And he just resonated for me. And he did something energetically in my heart where my heart kind of just fell at his feet. And I knew that he is a true teacher in this world. And I have found Ron to be one of the most genuine, beautiful, giving, kind, generous, honest people that I've ever met. And it is my truest honor to have him on this show as my guest and especially as my friend because he really means a lot to me. And I think that you will find his energy will reach out and touch you too. So that's my personal little introduction about Ron, and I'm just going to share a few little things. Well, not a few little things. It's actually a lot of big things. So Ron's relationship with water, and I love this because this is something that I don't know about, so I'm excited to learn about. So Ron's relationship with water began half a century ago. He dropped out of university and began taking college lessons of the Brotherhood of the White Temple. That sounds so intriguing. The first lesson ended with an exercise with water that shaped his relationship with energy ever since. A decade later, he built the first solar-powered house in Canada in a remote part of Alberta. And water played a role in bringing him to this place as well. Back then, solar power was almost unheard of, and it ended up becoming a business that took Ron to many parts of the world. 2 decades later, Ron began a career teaching the principles of sacred geometry and meditation in the form known as the flower of life. And I think that this is also around the time that I started to get to know about Ron as well. And 15 years ago, he also began a journey learning new ways of working with sound. So this helps to assist in bringing balance to the energy systems of the body, mind, and spirit. Ron assisted in developing a new technique known as the Fibonacci process, combining traditional Chinese medicine and sacred geometry. And so Ron's most recent, this has been amazing. There's so many things you've been doing, but Ron's most recent work incorporates new technology and spirit. I love that, new technology and spirit in ways that assist individuals and larger groups in finding the balance known as the unified field. Wow, that's incredible. So, I mean, that's lifetimes and lifetimes in one lifetime right there. And I know that there's just so much more. So, Ron, after all of that, I'd love for you to just start sharing with whatever feels like a great place to start for you. I mean, I don't want to miss how this relationship with water for you began. So I'd really like to hear about that as well.
Okay. Thank you, Veda. It's wonderful to be present with you always, and I'm honored to do this with you. I have watched this series that you've been doing, and I've been amazed at the guests that you've had, and it was wonderful to see Dan last week. That's how we met, really. Dan came to a workshop I was giving and then wanted to introduce the group who was at that workshop to you. So we came to your place, your shop, and your home at that time. Yes. I'm honored to do this. And I am amazed at the work you're doing, what you've done to help us to understand the consciousness that we're sharing with water. It's important work, and I want to assist you in any way I can to help get that word out. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Ron. That means such a lot to me, you know that. Yeah.
So, about this first exercise with the lessons from the Brotherhood of the White Temple. These were lessons in metaphysics, which is a hugely broad topic. But it was a time when I was very discouraged with what I was learning in school and university. And all of a sudden, this world opened up where it was so attractive to be able to look at things in such a broader perspective that I started on that path. And the very first lesson, I won't say what the lesson was on, but I'm going to tell you about the exercise that we were given to do at the very end of that first lesson. And that was to take a glass of water, whichever, tap water, whatever, there were no stipulations, and simply put it on the table in front of you, put a candle behind it, and in relative darkness, to take your hands and hold them on each side of the water and to begin to charge the water with your energy. So we were learning about the concepts of prana and chi and how we can affect other forms of life with our energy. And we do that, and you could do it for a specific period of time or longer, and then afterwards drink the water. And so for me, that was an opening. It was an awakening of the concept of connecting to, at that time, I hadn't really considered water to be a form of life. I was very early in my journey of waking up. And it started that process. It was part of that process. And it's continued, that relationship has continued to grow since then, for over 50 years, yes. Yeah.
So when I think of water, I also think of us as a body of water. And when I met you, you know, you were teaching of sound healing, and such a big part of my journey now has also been around sound and music. And I've always believed that water is a type of receiver, and music is a type of medicine. And I feel like with the work that you've been doing and with water and sound and the way that sound is received by the water in the body, that it can do really remarkable things. I felt it myself. I remember when you did some sound healing on my body, and afterwards, I was so high. I felt like I could just go out and just dance for the whole night. It was like I was quite exhausted before we did the treatment, and I was quite transformed energetically. It was really amazing.
Yes. Yes. So that's kind of the last part of the journey I described in the intro, was beginning to work with sound in very detailed ways. It's a coming together of knowledge and spirit, and now even technology. The name that I've given to what I'm doing now is spirit tech. These worlds coming together. Water moves, or sound moves through water 4 times faster than it moves through air. It's another way of demonstrating that water is a carrier of information. I understand on a deeper level now that water is conscious, and that's a whole other part of the journey. But even without that, knowing that sound moves through water faster than it moves through air as a carrier is useful information because the body's water.
Exactly.
So when we're immersing the body with sound, then it is the water that's carrying that information, the sound itself, but also the intention that's being induced into that moment. When you're working with someone, you could call that healing. It's sharing however you want to word it. And the intention that's being held in that moment is of prime importance. So the technology I'm working with now um, is we have a situation in the world. I'm going to have to kind of describe something before I can really talk about the technology in any depth. Because we have issues with technology in our world. And those issues are that whatever technology we create has purposes that you could call positive and also negative. Why? It's because we live in a polarized world. We live in polarity. And whatever we create in polarity must have both sides represented. So you can take any technology and use it for work that is absolutely in the highest good, and it can also be other than highest good. And so this is our issue with technology, because in fact, it's the issue with us and the way we create. Because for the most part, right now, we create from the brain. And I believe most people understand that the brain is a polarized instrument. It is divided in two equal parts by the corpus callosum. Most people know that one side of the brain tends to operate in logic, and the other side tends to operate in feelings, emotions. People say the left brain is logic and the right brain is feelings and emotion. It's the creative aspect. You could give them male and female connotations. Um, there is a division in these two sides, and part of the work that we are all doing in our life is to try and bring those two sides together. Uh, Without that understanding, before that's understood, and it's really not understood by so many in the world today, what you find is people will have an intention to create something, and it can be as grand and as positive as something like peace in the world. And what they don't understand is at the same time, they're also creating its opposite. They must be, because we're creating from a polarized instrument. And so we can create with intention technology that only works if you're working in the highest good of all. This is, we have to smarten up with how we create things in this world, especially when we're creating from the brain. There's another way to create, and that's a large part of what I've been doing for the last 20 years or so, is to help people understand, first of all, to move and discover a place in the heart that is in the unified field. It's not polarized. What a discovery that is. And when you create from that place, it's not, whatever you're creating is not polarized. And if we were looking for a way out of the mess, the hole we've dug in the world right now. That's it. It's to discover that place and a new way to create from that place. Now, in this process, uh, that in Egypt they had a process many thousands, several thousands of years ago that was primarily based on resurrection, on bringing the body back to life at a certain moment. And they would mummify a person and they would save the organs and put them in jars, except for two organs they actually put back in the body. And those were considered to be the two most important organs. And that was the heart and the sexual organs. Both are primary to creation. So that's why they were the most sacred. All the others were put in jars and then kept with the mummy. But there was one part of the body that they didn't save, they threw it away. And when I'm talking about this in the workshop, I let people go ahead and guess what that was, and they'll say all kinds of things. Eventually, you arrive at the part that was thrown away, and that was the brain. Now, for me, when I understood that, I felt the trauma of that to the brain. You know, the brain is actually, it has everything to do with our ego. And if you're telling the brain that we used to throw it away, that's no way to make peace with the brain. And in the way that we need to now learn to create in this world, it's not by throwing the brain away. It's by having these two become partners so that they're working together in creation, so that we can actually take this unified field and begin to move it into polarity. What we're doing in that place is taking both back into unity. Nothing gets left behind. And that's how to make peace within yourself and with these different parts of yourself. I could go on, but that's the concept of how we need to remember how to work with technology.
Yeah, we never hear this perspective. I haven't heard anyone else talk about this perspective, looking at the way in which we create, um, and being very mindful of that, because so often we just go into that and we're not really thinking about where the creation is coming from. We're not mindful. So, I mean, for me, this is a very transformative new way of looking at things.
Right.
Because we are in a whole new world and a whole new kind of state of being right now. And this is the time for this to start developing.
It's critical.
Yes. It really is critical. That's how I see it. That's why I feel like the work that you've been doing with Quantify as well. I don't know if you want to talk about that at all, but
I can, absolutely. I'd love to talk about it. And I even have a few pictures lined up if you'll allow me to screen share it.
Yeah, I hope you can. I don't know how to do that, but
I think the way you do that is to make me the host.
Yeah. Have you tried? Can you just see if that will, if you're able to?
Let's see if I can. Yes. Okay. Can you see on your screen now?
Yes, I can.
This image of a massage table, and there's some lights on either side of it.
Oh my gosh, it reminds me of something I've seen on an Egyptian hieroglyph.
It should, because those images in Dandara essentially are of this technology. They're enormous. The bulbs that they're using in those images. Everything now in technology has been reduced in size. So I'll just explain a little bit. Can you see the cursor on the screen? Right now
Yep,
it's in the middle.
yep, yep.
So let's go to the right side.
Mhm.
And first of all, what you're seeing where these blue lights are and above it is a Tesla coil. For those who aren't familiar, Nikola Tesla was an inventor in the late 1800s and early 1900s. He was the one who created AC electricity, um, and he created all kinds of other things. He was really the first to create the telephone, the radio, and others would take that and then adapt it and claim it. He was an amazing inventor and way ahead of his time. Uh, this Tesla coil is activating what's called a plasma tube. It's a glass tube that's a vacuum tube that's filled with noble gas. And when the Tesla coil is on, it excites the gas into plasma. Now, so what is plasma? You've talked about, Veda, the fourth state of water.
Mhm.
And plasma is the fourth state of being, where you have a solid, a liquid, a gas, and then plasma.
Yeah.
And plasma is really absolutely universal. None of those others are universal. Everything in the universe isn't solid, everything isn't a gas or liquid, but everything in the universe is plasma. So plasma is really, to me, it correlates to what water is here on the earth. It is that which connects us all together, and it contains all information and all possibility. So when it's being excited in this tube, it's spinning at a very rapid rate, and it's creating an electromagnetic field. There's tubes on either side of the table, and what's happening is that the electromagnetic fields are joining together in the center. And where they meet, they're actually creating what in sacred geometry is known as a vesica Piscis, that sacred shape where creation happens. It's the coming together of the first two cells when the human body's being formed. And in sacred geometry, it's the place of creation. That, when you're working on someone on the table, that's happening at the center of their body, both their physical body and their energy body. And in the very center of the energy body are what's known as the eight original cells. And that's a very sacred place within each of us. And you know that you actually took the class for the Fibonacci process.
It is, yeah.
Right? So you know that when we're doing the work on the body, activating certain acupuncture points on the body, and using sound to do that, we're activating what are called the eight extraordinary vessels in Chinese medicine, which are part of the eight original cells uh, contained in the very center of the body. And so this is all happening with inside the plasma field that's being emitted from these tubes that are meeting in the center. The thing is that these tubes are uh, being excited also by whatever frequencies I choose to add into the Tesla coils, which takes that and induces it into the field. So any sound. And you know I've been working with tuning forks for many years.
Yeah.
So now what I've done is I've taken those sounds and recorded them, digitized them. They're all in a computer and in a software system that we developed. And I can play all of those sounds, hundreds, even thousands of sounds on this little MIDI keyboard.
Wow.
Those sounds are being emitted by a speaker, but more importantly, they're being induced into the plasma field and being carried to every part of the body, physical and energetic. So all of the frequencies that I would use to use tuning forks to touch the acupuncture points on the body with, now it's being induced into the plasma field. Now, for those that understand the technology of Tesla, what was important about these coils that Tesla used was that they emitted and used a different kind of waveform than most other technology that we use in the world to this day. You may have heard about how the amounts of just stray waveforms that we're now surrounded by is actually starting to affect us in a negative way. It's part of this whole polarized way of creating. And now technology is, when there's too much of it, it takes away the balance and it starts to harm us. The Tesla coil creates a different form of waveform that's called longitudinal. And longitudinal waves are non-destructive. Longitudinal waves can meet without destroying each other. They actually amplify each other and become constructive instead of destructive. There's a place at the very northern tip of New Zealand where two oceans come together. Have you been there?
Yes.
What happens when you witness those two ocean currents come together? The waveforms are trying to destroy each other, and it'll shoot water into the air for hundreds of feet. You've seen that?
Yeah. A long time ago, but yes.
Yes.
I remember, and I remember asking about it, asking why is it doing that, and no one could give me a very good answer.
Because the two waveforms are not able to mesh together in harmony. They're just trying to destroy each other. And that's what happens with almost all of our technology in the world today. All of these things are not meshing together. What's happening with Quantify is the waveforms are non-destructive and they're actually amplifying each other in a constructive way. So the sound that's being carried within this field is not just immersed so you can hear it, it's affecting every part of what's inside the field. So intention and the knowledge of frequency are really important.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm doing now in sessions. I'm playing the sounds that of the tuning forks and other instruments, and using those frequencies in a pattern. It's the same pattern that you learned called the Fibonacci process. And then, of course, there are many other ways that we can use this.
How do people feel, and how have you felt the difference between a manual application of using the tuning forks on different parts of the body in comparison to using the Quantify? What have you noticed? What difference?
Incredible amplification and focusing of the energy. This was all new to me. I just first got this equipment in January of 2020 and turned it on, and right away I knew that something was really important. It I recognize the unified field. I've been meditating for many years, and I practice and teach, help others to get to this place of unity within themselves. And so when I saw that now here is a technology that is not only working at that level, it's helping to concentrate that. I felt that there were ways that we could use it to assist others to find that place, not to use it as a crutch, but as a doorway into their own unified field. So I'm going to show you another picture, another way of using the technology. So that is this one.
Wow, that's amazing. Unified space, and that from there they're able to start also creating. So
Yeah.
that it's in, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It takes some understanding and some instruction to. I've been helping people move into what's known as the tiny space in their heart for a long time, because that's the place that I'm speaking of. It is a very specific place in the physical heart that is in unity. But sometimes that can be blocked. If we have someone who has severe trauma, that will affect their ability to move into that space. So there can be work to do before you can sustain occupying that space.
Okay.
So we can help people. Most people get there, but staying there is a whole other thing. Until you do the work to allow that to be a way of life. So this setup is the same thing, but you see it's much closer together now, the two tubes. And in the middle, I'm just using a crystal that I have, a crystal ball, as a focusing agent. And what I've been doing is there's a geometric symbol that it's sitting on. It's called Metatron's cube in sacred geometry. And I'm using that crystal as a focusing agent and doing group meditations with people from all over the world to have the crystal be the place where we come together and join in the unified field. So this is something that I operate in my living room and for a group meditation. But the other people aren't here. They can be anywhere.
It looks so familiar. Do you know that it's the one thing I keep looking at going, I've seen this before, but I haven't, but I have. Somehow this looks so familiar to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is, and that's exactly what I felt, Veda, when I first turned it on in January. This is very familiar, and so the energetic quality is very familiar because the unified field is approachable there because it's being created. And it's also very familiar because I believe this is a remembering of a place we were before in probably Atlantis. Yeah. Oh,
This
yeah.
is this is one of the tests that I did with Ron. So what we did was we took regular tap water, and here is an image of what regular tap water often looks like. It was kind of like jaggedy and lines without terribly much order. This is very common. And I used the same tap water And what we did, it was such a short time, I'm pretty sure I said it here. So, okay, so yeah, this was filtered tap water. Um,
It was what,
so
just a minute or so, wasn't it?
I don't even know if it was that long. Well,
After
yeah,
only
no,
a minute.
that's right. Just
Yeah,
1 minute.
yeah.
So, and so I'm in New Zealand and Ron is in Canada, and he set the energy field, the unified field, towards the petri dish of water that I had here in New Zealand, waiting for him. And only for 1 minute was the water was the machine was the quantify actually engaging with the water here in New Zealand, and I immediately froze that tap water, and this was the image here that I got. It actually was very interesting because I did these at the same time of day, and I noticed a really huge change in color as well as obviously there's geometries here, but it went from this sort of silvery darker color, and I took the photos in the same place, but we noticed that it's also changed in color on, which I don't think I mentioned to you. But we can see that a major structural difference happened here. And, these beautiful sacred geometries
And
occurred.
you can see the hexagonal shapes
Yeah.
that are part of the structure of DNA, actually. So there's major stuff happening there. Yes.
Major stuff. I mean, it was remarkable because we have this concept of time around healing, and I think that holds us up from healing quite often because we assume that it needs to take such a long time. But in the unified field, I actually believe that time things can just happen almost instantaneously. And I observed myself just say almost, because even in my mind, it's still going, why couldn't it just happen? You know, it can happen instantaneously.
Yeah.
And so, I saw that with the effect it had on water from thousands and thousands of miles away to create and change the structure of water in a profound way. So
Yeah.
for me, that was also that little taste, um, because so often we want to be able to see what it's doing. We can feel it, we can feel energy, but we can't necessarily see it. So when that's one of the nice things I've found with doing crystallography, um, is that we're able to see what the effects of energy are. And
This is
sorry,
an important part of the work you're doing and that I do and so many others that you've talked to in your series is to help bring the belief systems that we have forward so that we can know they exist and then push the walls out a little bit further each time. Because that's all we're doing. We're never knocking the walls down completely. We just keep pushing them a little further so that our box gets bigger all the time. And we need to prove to ourselves because we still live in this polarity. We have this logical mind. And if it's not on board, then we can't really be balanced enough to move into the heart, that place of the unified field. So all of this is part of um, what's necessary in order to change the way we create,
yeah.
is to bring this balance back so that we can be uh, not just touching, but using the unified field as the place of creation.
That I think is one of the most profound things. It's actually for the people that really understand this, that listen to this, and really feel into what you're saying here and what this means. I mean, it can make massive change in the world. It can be the change we want to see that we didn't know how to do.
Yes, I agree. So I want to give credit where credit's due. Um, what I'm expressing are concepts that were expressed first by someone I worked with for many years, whose name is Drunvalo Melchizedek. And this is a development of work that I was part of for 20 years and participated in, and continue to this day, that's now known as Awakening the Illuminated Heart. And I truly do feel that what's being given in the classes and workshops that are part of that work is it is something that can assist us in changing this reality. Absolutely. And so for that reason, I want to, just make known that what I'm giving are concepts. I have my own understanding and my own ways of doing things, but this work originally is coming from Drunvalo, and people can learn about that through, there's a little book called Living in the Heart by Drunvalo. It's just a sweet little book that you can connect in a deeper way about what I'm discussing here.
We were discussing just before we started the interview something really interesting about like the interconnectedness of everything and about the cenotes. And I would love for you to share what you shared with me, because it just was like that aha moment of ancient wisdom that we can suddenly recognize, oh, that's what they were doing. That's how they did that.
Sure. This just happened last night. I was talking with a student and friend who has spent just before COVID began. She was in Mexico and that part of Central America that connects. I'm not sure if it was Belize. Anyway, she was doing ceremony with the Mayans and the Incas in that part of the world. And they asked her, because she's a diver, someone who dives with tanks, they asked her to do a specific ceremony at a cenote. I asked her permission to talk about this. I'm not going to mention names or anything, but they asked her to do ceremony at a cenote. And for those who don't know, the cenote are these incredible bodies of fresh water that are all over the Yucatan. They may be in other parts too, but this is where I've connected to them, where the water is absolutely immensely charged, crystal clear, and beautiful. If you ever have an opportunity to swim in a cenote, do it. It's a beautiful experience. She was asked to go into a cenote, a specific one, and dive, and there are some caves there. And she was given instructions on ceremony to do in the caves for specific purposes. As she was telling me this, my body just went into, it was there. It was there in spirit and also in memory for the times that I've been in the Yucatan doing ceremony and working at sacred sites. I began to understand that typically there are always cenotes very close to these places that they call ancient ruins. All of these places, Chichen Itza has a cenote right on the site. There are many others, Tulum, Coba. Tulum has the ocean that is a very big cenote. It's not fresh water though. What I saw was that this is how these places communicated. It was the water that, this I've heard before, that uh, all of this water is coming from the same aquifer, and there's connections from all of these sacred sites underground. And because we understand the water to be a carrier of information and to be conscious, they were communicating from one place to another in a much better way than we've ever duplicated in our technology. Um, Everything was being communicated back and forth. It really truly was like being there. Um, so, and as I told her what that vision was, she said, yes, that's what they said too. That's what the minds said, was that this is how they communicated.
It's like a liquid crystal communication highway.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, that just makes so much sense to me
Mm-hmm.
because, I mean, the other thing I recently thought about was about how our thoughts, when they are specifically directed into water, the water doesn't just stay in one of its phases. It's always, it can change. It has multiple phases. So the water that you direct your thoughts into will eventually evaporate and become part of, the air, and your thoughts will literally float, and they will travel, and they will go all the way around the world into different places, and they will rain down upon the earth. And this is the beauty, the truth for me about the information that water can share around the world with,
Mm-hmm.
with intention. And you've used that word. It's an important word that is often just kind of used, this is my intention, but it's a very, very important word
Yeah.
because it holds a great deal of value. It's truth. So water doesn't lie. That's one
Mm-hmm.
thing. It is the ultimate lie detector test, and it knows what your intention is.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever you're putting out there into the world, just being mindful of what that is, being mindful of what our thoughts are going into the water we drink, what our thoughts are when we're in water as well, because we're giving out energy and receiving, because this body is so porous. I mean, so much of the water that we shower in, that we bathe in, that we swim in, is actually also entering the body. It's
Mm-hmm.
one of the ways we absorb water and take water in that we don't even think about.
Yes, in vast quantity. Yes. What you're describing, Veda, is that everything that ever has been and is now, that information is within the water and therefore within everything. So that from that perspective, we can once again perhaps understand that all life is connected. There is no separation. And that means all of life on every level. All of that knowledge is contained within the water, and it's ready to share that knowledge.
More than ever before. I just wrote a post, it's very simple, but it said, water is not a resource, it is source.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nice, the idea of changing the narrative,
Mm-hmm.
because, we always, so many people are talking about water not only as a commodity, but as a resource that we use,
Mm-hmm.
not of what we are. And if the narrative can change to the understanding that we are all bodies of water, not just human beings, but every being. And it's as if water is actually observing itself from every perceivable, possible body it can be in,
Yeah.
because it will enter the body of anything, like a tree, an ant, a human, a king, a beggar, anything, anyone,
Yes.
and have an experience of
It,
itself.
it will not be denied. It
It
will
will not be
not be
denied.
denied. It will share, and that all there is to it.
That's,
Yeah.
that's very true. So now in this world we're currently in, and there is so much going on, I feel that there is also a lot of hope
Mm-hmm.
because being a body of water means that we are all interconnected, that we have this ability with what you're saying. My takeaway from this interview, which I hope people really get to understand what you've said, is like being able to go into the unified field that we can be in this body and begin to create from that space means we get to create the world we want to see.
Yes.
The world does not have to be the way it looks to us at the moment. And I believe there are two worlds, the world we live on and the world we live in.
Mm-hmm.
And the world we live in so much reflects that intention.
Yes.
And when we are in that space, the space you're talking about, within that unified field, that's where I feel if we're able to start doing that, then we're able to see great change happen in our lifetime. And that's important. That's what I feel is just so incredible about what you've brought to everybody.
Mm.
You're going to have to excuse the lawnmower guy who's just started up out there.
This is we have to be in life too.
Yeah,
Yes. So no, you've described it beautifully. This is the hope. This is the way out.
yeah,
It, and it doesn't take that much. All it takes is a certain number, and that number is can be argued. You know, there are many who've done experiments with that. The Maharishi University did an experiment that said about 7% of consciousness needed to change. Other experiments, Greg Braden talks about a much smaller number that's more like 0.01%, which is much smaller. It doesn't matter what the number is, it's just the critical mass that it takes to change. And I believe that that is what we're doing. And when you're operating from the heart, the beauty of creation from there is that you don't have to know what's going to happen. You just have to feel that it will. And that's how change happens in the heart. And it'll happen when you let go of the outcome and the how, then it can happen in ways that you couldn't even imagine here. So, this is how we heal uh, all of these things that we're so desperate to do. I mean, right now, there's a movement for something called the Great Reset
yes, I've heard of it.
that's saying that we need to do this, 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 and this. And it's like, give us all your money. You won't
Yeah,
need it anymore.
yeah,
All of these things are outlined, and they're saying this is the way out. I'm sorry. That's just taking the issues and the ways that we've been doing things and exacerbating it. We need to do this from the inside out. This is an inside job.
yeah. It sure is. It
Uh,
sure is.
yeah.
I love that.
Mhm.
Um, I'm going to mention two things. Firstly, we're talking about those little percentages, but when I look at the percentages of water and I look at the small percentage of water that is actually available for us as human beings and anybody to drink as fresh water, it's way actually less than 2%.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of look at the percentages that water enables life to bloom in this planet, and it's so tiny.
That's a great guideline. I love that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that um, is there any way that people can be in touch with you about the Quantify technology that you're talking about, to learn more or to experience it? I mean, I wish I could like come over and hop on that massage table and experience that firsthand, and I will as soon as I can.
Yes.
But perhaps it can work remotely. Like I'd love to be able to have you share that so people can actually get in touch with you as well.
Yes. So when you notified people of this interview, excuse me, you're welcome to use my email as a source of contact.
Right. Okay, I'll do
And
that.
right now, I've taken down my website, which may seem like a stupid thing, but I found that it didn't represent what I was doing anymore, and I have to rebuild it, and I'm in the process of doing that. I've done a lot of video work now with demonstrating Quantify, doing sessions, having all that filmed, and doing presentations. And so I'm sorting through that and editing it now. Uh, so I'll have a website up, and it will be under my name, ronlaplace.com. But it's not there right now. I've taken it down.
Fine. We're all kind of doing that in a way. It's like tearing things down and beginning anew. And I think that it's time. You know, this is all perfect. It's all in perfect timing. Ron, that kind of coming up to our hour, but
Wow.
Yeah, it's gone so quickly. But you know, one of the things that I really want to say is thank you. You know, thank you from the very the very bottom of my heart, because I don't really want to get emotional. I know you always do this to me, so it's your fault. but but you know, you are such a profound person, and you bring so much. A feeling of safety always comes into my heart when I think of you. A place and a person that I can feel totally safe with, to share everything of who I am, and that's so much, and it's rare, I think, to meet somebody as special who holds that place, certainly for me. And so to have you, you know, be able to do this show with me, and especially just to be there in this time. You know, we're all in this together. Like you said, it's an inside job, and being part of what's inside of you as a friend, I'm just so grateful for that. It means a lot to me. So thank you so much for just being you, for being such a special person. And thanks to John and Waveney as well, these beautiful people that are our friends that I know are very special to and dear to both of us. I'd love to just give them that quick shout out and mention.
Yes, they're teachers of the work that we described, the awakening, the illuminated heart. And I would like to say that it was your heart that I felt when we first met. And that is as pure and dedicated as any heart I've ever known. And it is an absolute honor to know you in this life and participate together. Yes.
Well, I haven't got so emotional on the show yet, so I think actually it's so beautiful because tears are always water coming out to greet you, and so I'm super grateful for that. So thank you, Ron, so much. You're such a beautiful person, beautiful soul, and such a light in this world. It's been my honor to have you on this show, and anyone who wants to reach out to you, I'll put Ron's email link for you, so you can.
I'm happy to hear from others and to share more experiences. Yes.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Thank
you, Ron, and thanks to everybody. See you soon. Bye.